Welcome everyone. My name is Michelle. I'm the Marketing Manager for Staff Development for Educators, and I'd like to thank you for joining us today for Let's Get Them Writing for grades K-2 with Pat Pavelka. Before we start, there are a few things you should know. To allow for Pat to be heard clearly, we have placed all attendees on mute. Please use the window on the right-hand side of your screen throughout the webinar to ask any questions. These will be used for our question and answer period at the end of the presentation. This session is being recorded. Assuming no technical difficulties, you will receive a link to the archive within 48 hours, as well as a link to the certificate of participation. Finally, at the end of today's presentation, you will receive a short survey. By completing this survey, you assist us in providing future complimentary webinars. A little bit about SDE. At SDE, we believe educators have the most important job in the world. That's why it's our mission to empower pre-K through 12 educators across the country with sustained professional development solutions that are not only research-based and rigorous, but also practical, innovative, and fun. Our goal is to help you create environments that prepare your students for the evolving demands of the 21st century. Together, we can create extraordinary classrooms. We are pleased to have Pat Pavelka joining us for today's webinar. Pat is an exciting classroom innovator with more than 30 years of experience as a teacher and national education consultant. A sought-after speaker, she consistently earns high marks for her creative strategies for meeting the Common Core reading standards, straightforward style, and real-life answers to challenging issues. Pat is the author of 13 books, including the new series, Teaching the Common Core. Welcome, Pat. At this point, I'll turn the presentation over to you.
Thank you, Michelle, and welcome everybody. It's so exciting to have us all from different states get together and be able to talk about getting our younger children writing. So before we start, just a quick 1-2 about me so you know where I am. I live in New England, and right now our foliage is just beautiful. These are 2 trees that are down the street from where I live. My family, I have 3 boys and a girl. They're the kids, and the children have been put at the other side of the house. I'm in my home office, and hopefully they will not be letting you know that they want to come and visit. And being that it's the fall time, new holidays are coming up, and so here's Joey and Sika, and they're getting ready for Halloween. So just a fun little bit about me, and here we go. Let's talk about getting these children to be writers and loving it. So the first thing that we really want our students to understand and know is that writing is life. So many times, my big mistake in the classroom has been that my writing has always been an assignment. After a book, write about this, tell me what you think about this. And so what's happening is students aren't seeing writing as life. They are seeing it as assignments. And we want our students to know that when you write, you do make a difference in somebody else's life, and you do also make a difference in your life. And so writing is a powerful tool for living, not just assignments. So the first thing or a strategy that we'll look at is how to get this foundation of writing is not just an assignment that I give you. Writing is life. Writing is something that you do and you give some of yourself to somebody and you get something back. So here is what we do. Every week we write a thank you note to somebody. So on Monday morning we choose somebody. We never thank enough of the people who really help us. And so every Monday morning we brainstorm, who do we want to thank this week? And we talk about all the things that they've done to help us. And we write down thank you letters. My kindergartners are typically writing, Dear Mr. Solar, and then a picture of what they've done or how he's helped, and then love in their name. Whereas my first graders, especially second graders, I want them to give at least 3 or 4 sentences that tell specifically what they want to thank him for. So it's very differentiated. Some of your children will do pictures. Some of your children will do writing. The letters are due on Thursday. Friday morning, we put them in an envelope and we deliver them. Well, here's what happened in one of the classrooms. One of the schools that I work with, the custodian is not a very popular man with the children. He's a little grouchy, and the children don't, I have to say, they don't really like him. But we decided that we needed to write a letter to him to thank him for all the things that he does with us, for us. And the kids were kind of okay. They weren't really excited about it, but we did. We gave it to him on Friday. Monday morning, he came in the classroom. He pulled a chair. He turned it backwards so that he sat on that chair backwards. He put his hands and leaned on the top of the chair, and he almost started to cry. He talked to them about his life. And my children, those children saw him as a grandfather. They saw him as a man who had some dogs, who had a son, who had a little grandson, and the whole relationship changed. At the end of every day, I never had to say to my kids more than once, please clean up the floor. Please put your chairs up. Every afternoon they would say, don't forget, we got to put our chairs up for Mr. Joey so that he doesn't have to bend so much and take care of all the stuff that we can do. That was the best lesson that we could have ever brought to those children, to see that writing is powerful. So every Monday, pick somebody, and this is just a little list to get you started. Some other things that we've brainstormed together are some of your PTA members, your art, music, gym, librarian, the bus drivers. We also have a crossing guard, the PTO, PTA. So just think about all of the people that help. And it really creates that foundation every week of writing is quick, it's fun, and you get something back from it. Next strategy. The goal is to give you as many strategies as we can in our little bit of time together. 6 boxes. This is my #1 strategy of how I get my students who are not independent to not come up to me or not come up to us and be able to stay at their seat and start a piece of writing. And typically we see 2 problems. We see those younger children who don't really know their letters and sounds yet. So when you say, let's write something, they panic, and the first thing they say is, how do you spell it? And then we also have those other students who, they are fluent writers in that they can write pages and pages, but their writing says nothing. It just kind of goes on and on and on, and there's no clear focus. So I will show you and walk you through 2 examples, one of a non-reader who's really iffy on letters and sounds, and then I'll show you or walk you through a child who can write anything, but the writing is not really structured or organized, and then we'll look at a lot of examples. So the first example that we'll look at is Joanne. Joanne is a child who does not know all her letters and sounds yet. And so as soon as she hears the word writing, she panics. So these 6 boxes are now on the board, and she is up at the board with me, and you want everybody to watch you and a specific child working through these 6 boxes. You don't want to use these 6 boxes as a whole group activity where it's one story. It has to be a specific child story so that the kids can see how one person uses it by themselves. So Joanne is at the board with me, and Joanne says, I want to write a story about my birthday party. So she starts telling us all the things about her birthday party, that she had party hats and streamers and balloons, and she's a funny little girl because after she tells us all of this information, she puts her hands on her hips and says, yeah, but I can't write that. So we talk about what could she do to tell us and show us and write all of the things that she's telling, that they had party hats and they had streamers and she had balloons. So we talk about pictures. So we do this. What do you think those are? Yep, they're balloons. These are streamers. These are, what do you think? Party hats. So all we're going to do is draw what we call quick picks. No color, no detail. Just a quick pick of the information that you want to tell us. Then she said 6 people came to my party. So I drew 5 people to her 1 person, because here's the 5 people I drew, And here's what she did. She drew too much detail. She drew the person with the bow on the hair and the shoes, the little heels, and she put the present in her hand and the bow in her hair. See, we don't want those details yet. What we want to get away from is one big picture that they draw and color. Because what happens is, at the younger grades, at those younger levels, they're spending, first of all, too much time on the pictures, and they never get to the writing. Or they get the picture done, and then they give you a statement. I had a birthday party, it was fun. So I say to them, look at your picture and tell me some details. And they have a very difficult time pulling out the details from a full picture. And they often say, it was really very fun. And they're not giving me more in terms of details. They're giving me more in terms of the words, really, really, very, very fun, and I loved it a lot. So now, look at the details that we're going to start to get in the writing. We're going to get details about balloons and streamers and party hats. We're going to get details about that there were 6 people who came. She then said, I got a lot of presents. And now she's getting the hang of it, so she does this. And she said, I got a lot of presents. Then she starts to talk about all the games that she played. And now she's having a hard time again because she's giving us too much information. She said, we played pin the tail on the donkey, we played bobbing for apples, we played the donut game, and then we got, yeah, but I can't write that. So we talked to the class and we were brainstorming what she could do. So one of the boys was trying to tell us what to do and I couldn't figure out what he wanted. So he came up to the board and he did this. And he said, tell us about the 4 games that you played. And he said, game starts with a G. So now when it's time to write, you're ready to write about 4 games, and don't forget it starts with a G. So then she said, everybody went home. So here's the house. And we did write by this way. And here's the person. Here she is. And she is waving goodbye. Do you see how she is ready to write? Look at all the details. And bare minimum, I'm going to get 5 words, phrases, or sentences. So now let's look at a child who is a better writer in terms of words, but no organization. And then we'll look at their samples, because you'll see that we now take these 6 boxes and do something with them. So this child now is a boy that we're going to talk about, and he wants to write a story about a soccer game. So he did not do the boxes at first. He got a piece of paper, and he wrote this story titled The Soccer Game. And he started fairly well. He said, he wrote, I have a soccer game after school, so Mom picked me up so I could get home earlier, and we had lasagna for dinner. Lasagna is my favorite meal. And you know, while we were eating the lasagna, the neighbor is playing Frisbee with his dog, and the Frisbee is blue. You know, my uncle's got a blue truck, and last year he got in this really wicked accident, and he got it cast, and we all signed it. And I'm thinking, as I'm reading this, where's the soccer game? There's no soccer game. And if I ask him, does this make sense? He says, yes. And it does, because one thing reminded him of something else, reminded him of something else. And so he doesn't have that ability to pull it all together in terms of a cohesive piece. He's just going from the Frisbee to the color to the uncle to the cast. So the next day, I called him up and said, I want you to take the boxes and organize your soccer story. So he looked at me and said, you didn't like my soccer story, did you? And I said, well, I know a lot about your uncle, and he's got a truck, and I know that you like lasagna, but I really wanted to hear about the soccer game, and you got off target. You didn't come back to the soccer game. So he went back to his seat, and this is what he wrote. He wrote, soccer game, 1-0, 2-0, 2-1, 2-2, overtime. Is he ready to write now? He sure is. He is now organized. And what we now want to do is look at these boxes and make sure that the story makes sense going from this event to this detail to all of these different things. The first box typically is a title or a topic, and then all the details that he wants to include in the story, and then we have to make sure that it has a defined or definite ending. So now let's look at a lot of their examples. After they finish with these 6 boxes, they take the 6 boxes and they glue them or staple them onto a piece of construction paper. And then what they do is they write next to each box. And so first of all, let's take an emergent writer who is really having a hard time with letters and sounds, and sometimes they write and we can't read what they write, and neither can they read what they've written. But if they have 6 different pictures of one topic, and now you're really looking at main idea and details, or now you're really looking at storyline, what happens is what letters they have here, it's easier for them to try to figure it out, and it's easier for us because we can see the picture. So for example, in that first one I showed you with the party, the birthday party, when we go back to that first box, if I see a B there, it's probably balloon. If I see a D there, it's probably balloon, but she did the B backwards. If I see a P there, it's probably a party hat, or if I see an H, it's a hat. Now, she actually did put a T there, and we couldn't figure out what the T was, and she looked at the picture and she went, hat. So she was hearing the T sound, which is easier to hear than the H sound. And so it really lets you work with students who are at the labeling area or level, or students who are starting to string letters together. Now I can read, this is a story about this child and her baby. I love my baby, me and my baby, and I'm not really sure what it says. It's something about playing together, I think. And this is my baby, and I think it says eats with me, and there's she and the baby, my baby, and I think it says something about watching TV with me and my baby, and this says water the plants, and there they are, and I'm not sure what this says. It looks like they're sitting on a couch or they're in bed. So even if we can't read the writing, we now have a narrative story. And one of the hardest things to do in terms of writing with grades K-2 is to get a story when we ask them to write and not get, I love my mom, I love my dad, I love my dog, I love my cat, I really, really love my teacher. And we get a lot of I love and I like, I like, I like. And this gets away from that I love and I like, and it gets to beginning, middle, end. It gets to a storyline. And if you're working with that Common Core, starting to look at that personal narrative and story elements within the writing piece. So this is a child working with her fish, talking about her fish. I like to play with my fish. I like to feed my fish. And I'm not really sure what she's doing here. I like to, but even though I can't read it, and maybe there's some of you out there that can read it, it's so funny how we get so great at being able to read what they write. When we look at this picture with her, she's going to tell us what's in this picture. We can probably figure out exactly what she's written. I like to watch TV with my fish. So it looks like that's the TV on a stand. My fish is, I'm really not sure, it's at the something. And here, I like to jump on the bed. Now, I'm not really sure how that ties to the fish, but there's the fish in the picture. And so it's not perfect in that it doesn't keep them 100% on, but you get your narrative, and I'm getting 6 sentences that make sense, that are detailed, and not just I like, I like. So this is a child with her dog. I take my dog on a walk. She gives me company. She takes a bath with me. We play together. We go to the park. And we eat together. There's the V for giver. So look at the details. You see a lot of different levels. My friends, we're playing soccer. We're playing dolls. We color. We're at the store. And we go in the store. So she's not just saying, I have friends and we have fun together. She's giving the details. Now, the next thing you could do if you want to start to bump up is say, look at all of your sentences. All of your sentences start, except for the first one, with the word we. And so now what we want to do is try to not start every sentence with the word we. And it's so much easier when they haven't taken a piece of lined paper and written we like to play, we are playing dolls, we color, we are at the store, because it's harder to get in there and change. But do you see the extra space here? She can cross it out, change the whole sentence. Now in some ways you're really working with that revising piece early on. And this sample that we're looking at here is a first grader. This is a struggler, and she writes me and my and me, because those are the words that she knows how to spell. You can almost see the sight words she knows. So really it's very difficult to read her writing, but let's look at her story. It's some kind of an animal, it's either a dog or a cat. They look like they sit together on the couch. It looks like she's taking that, it's probably a dog because there's a leash. They're in bed, and the dog must be in bed with her. I'm not really sure what's happening here, but there's the dog again, and there is she with her dog. Look at the narrative and the details for a non-writer, for a child who's just writing the words, the sight words that she knows. The hardest thing is getting a story, and I want my students to know that our first form of writing was pictures. And so pictures tell a story. This is one of their journals from a first grade teacher in New Jersey. Do you see the boxes? So students are making boxes now many times when they're writing on their own. So if we look at these 6 boxes, my favorite thing to do in first grade this year is Legos. There's Legos. Carl and I played with them. There it is. When we did it, we was doing it because we was talking about simple machines. So they're talking about the simple machines. Simple machines are things that can help you. And Miss McGrath helped Carl and I with the tricky part. So the teacher's telling them the different steps. Here's a child now we're working with first, next, then last. If you notice, the boxes are crooked in the middle of the piece of paper because this child is very independent. She does not want to take the boxes that we have for her. She wants to do them on her own. So here's her writing. One day I was on the sled in my backyard. There it is. Suddenly I started to turn into a snowman. First, my arms turned into brown sticks. They're the sticks. Then my nose turned into a carrot. There's the carrot. Then I grew buttons on my stomach. There's the buttons. Finally, I turned into a snowman. So when you're working with first, next, then last, it's fabulous. This is a second grader. They were home for a number of days last winter with the ice storms. So again, this is a child that is independent. He wants to do his own boxes. He wrote, the electricity went out. My basement flooded. My big branches got so heavy with ice they fell. I watched all this. This child thinks he's done. But look at what we're going to do now. He's not going to copy these 4 sentences. We say to him, this is your topic sentence for paragraph 1. Paragraph 1, topic sentence, the electricity went out. Give me 3 details about the electricity going out. We had no lights, we couldn't cook on the stove, and it was dark early. This is now topic sentence for paragraph 2. My basement flooded. Give me 3 details about your basement flooding. So as they're getting older, what you'll find is the things that they give you for each boxes really become topic sentences that they can really develop and have a very good piece of writing. I'm going to show you one more. You'll see one more example, and the example that I'm going to show you now is a 5th grade example with the boxes, just so that you can see the progression of what you're doing at K-1-2 and where you can really take these boxes to. So this is a 5th grader. He is writing about a personal narrative about going to an amusement park. So here are his 6 boxes, and he's telling one detail on each of the boxes. He then takes a piece of lined paper, folds it in half, and cuts it, and makes a flip book, cuts it into 6 different pieces. I don't know if you can really see the cuts there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what was on the 6 boxes, he just puts the statement on each piece here that was on the 6 boxes. He then opens this up, and he gives details now for that topic sentence that's on the outside. So here it was talking about the ride El Toro. We go inside, and this is all the details about that El Toro ride. It was fast. It went 60 miles an hour. He was scared. It was going down fast. And look at his final copy. So you can go from just one word at each box so that you will just get labels, to a phrase, to a sentence, to 2 sentences, to a piece of writing that is 1 to 2 pages long. So now let's look at another strategy. This is called 3-line framework. It's to get students started. Again, one of the hardest parts of writing is getting them started. They often will sit there and say, I have nothing to write about. Or they have ideas, but they can't get started. And the spelling throws them. And so the one thing with the boxes is the spelling becomes easier because you've broken the task apart. They can see what they're writing about, not just one great big picture, and they don't have the details. This is the same kind of thing. It's even easier for some of the kiddos. I want them to tell me, and first do this orally before they even write it. So practice this orally, practice it in a discussion. I want them to tell me a character and where that character is, give me a problem, and how that problem was solved. For example, my dog Joey is outside. He wants to come inside, so he barked at the door. My friends and I just got home from school. The door is locked. I called my mom on the phone. Or my friend and I just came home from school. The door is locked. We went to our neighbor's house. There's a fish in the ocean. He's going to be eaten by a shark. He escaped from the shark. So if you look at this again, we're helping kids with storylines so that we're getting away from I love, I like, and we're getting the details. So it's a character, where they are, tell a problem, and a solution to that problem. So I have a timer here. I'm going to set my timer for 1 minute, either in your head on a piece of paper, or if you're with a colleague or you're in a group, just practice coming up with a couple of these. So you want a character and where, and typically a character is an animal or a person, a problem they have, and then a solution to that problem. So take 1 minute and just come up with a couple. You've got about 20 seconds more. Okay, so character, where, problem, solution to the problem. And I have this on sentence strips on the wall. So if my students can't get started, I say to them, pick an animal. Tell where the animal is. Tell a problem that the animal could have, and then how would you solve that problem? Or think of a friend, your mom, your dad, your brother, your aunt, your sister, your grandma. Think of a person, a fireman, a nurse, a doctor, a policeman, a clown, a circus actor, or an actress. And then think of a problem they could have, and then solving it. Here is a little twist to the three-line framework. It's a little different because it doesn't have a problem in it. Because sometimes with the writing, there's not always a problem, but there's an event. So it starts the same way. There's a character, tell where the character is, give an event, and then a detail about that event. For example, my family and I are outside. We are having a barbecue. We had hot dogs on the grill. My sister and I are riding our bike. My sister and I are outside. We are riding our bikes. We went to the store to get candy. Mom and I are at the beach. It is lunchtime, so we're going to walk and get an ice cream. So it's character and where, and it's not necessarily a problem, but it's an event. You went somewhere, you did something, you found something, and then there's a detail. So I'm going to look at my timer again and give you 1 minute, brainstorm, see if you can come up with a couple of these, and then see if you can notice the difference between the two, the problem and solution, and the event and the detail. So take 1 moment, and then we'll come right back. You've got about 20 seconds left. Okay, let's come back together again. Let's continue with another strategy. Magazine pictures. Very simply, students get a magazine picture and they write about it. Sounds easy, but boy, are there a lot of issues. First of all, I have students who take a bucket of pictures and they sit for the whole 10, 15, 20 minutes and they just flip through the pictures going, nope, 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 don't like it, nope, nope. And they can't find a picture that they like. Now, part of that problem, I have to be honest with myself and you, is me. When I look at the pictures that were in my tub, they were pictures of things that I liked. Dolphins and girly things and dogs. My boys don't like that. My boys want snakes. They want bats hanging upside down. So I have pictures in there that I guess I will explain them in terms of that they're right at the edge. They've got, some of them have a little blood and guts in them, but the boys like that. The girls don't necessarily. Just make sure you've got a lot of different pictures in there. Some of the boys said, you don't have any sports in here, and I didn't. When I looked at all my pictures, I didn't have one picture of anything that had to do with sports. So we really want to have a range of different things in the bucket. Now, we want to get students started. If you look at the activities that we've looked at so far, every activity has helped them get started because that's the hardest thing. And that's why I seem to always have that line at my desk. The minute they get off to write, that line comes and it grabs my shirt and it meanders around the room. And part of that is they may have ideas, but they can't get started with them. Now they can get started with the boxes. Or they have no idea and they don't know how to get started with an idea. Now they're going to get a magazine picture, or they're going to look at the three-line framework. These are the directions. I don't say to them, write a story, because sometimes when I say that, we have kids who panic. So we want to say to them, don't make this harder than it is. Look at the picture and write what you see. You see, they're never going to get better with the writing until they practice more. But if you don't like it and you're not good at it and you're scared of it, then you're not practicing enough. You're never going to get better at it. And so let's just say to them, tell me about the picture, and they can. And I say to them, you are a writer, because writers write down what they're thinking. So don't worry about a story. Look at the picture, write down what you see. So here are the 6 things to help them if they need even a little bit more prompting. Write what you see. So number 1, what is in the picture? So look at the picture. What is in the picture? So what is in the picture? Number 2, where is it taking place? So for example, number 1, what is in the picture? I see 2 dogs in the picture. Where are they? They are outside on a stump. It is winter time because I can see the snow and the trees. Number 3, tell me something about a color. The dogs are black and white. And now I start to get their huskies, their puppies. Tell me something about a size. They are small, but they have very big paws. They have chubby cheeks. They have little ears. Tell me something about a number. There's 2 dogs, and there's 1 stump. There are several trees. Here is the most important one now, number 6. Because number 6, once they have all these details, leads them to, what does this remind you of? So oftentimes, just putting down these things, what does this remind you of? Or what does this make you think about? What does it make you think about? So for example, some of my students with this picture, they started to take off about telling about their dog, and when they got their dog when their dog was a puppy and going to the pound. Some of the kids started to talk about the dogs and then started to say, I'm going to write a Christmas story because it reminded them of Christmas or winter, things that they do in the winter time. And so just by looking at the picture, it's almost going below the surface of, yeah, it's a picture of 2 dogs. But let's look at what's happening, what time of year it is, think about colors. It oftentimes leads them into a great story. Sometimes it doesn't, and for my strugglers, they just give me this information. So now let's look at some of their examples. And I will say that you're not going to be able to appreciate a lot of these examples because some of these were strugglers in this classroom. And this is from a 2nd grade classroom. So there's the picture. And you can tell with by the hole in the picture that it's a magazine. I see puppies. They are in the forest. They are white and brown, black too. There are 2 puppies. They are in the forest on a stump. They are the same size. Do you see the chart? And so even though it's a listing, look at all the information. The child has returned sweep, and it starts to become a descriptive paragraph. Also, notice the redrawing here of these 2 puppies. You'll have to make this work for you, but here's an idea. If you find some pictures that you know the students are really going to love, so I know my kiddos are going to love these puppy pictures. So what you might do is laminate those pictures. And that means you can use those pictures to write about, but you can't have them. They have to go back in the box when you're done with your writing for somebody else to use. That's why they're redrawing that picture. So they're the 2 dogs on a stump. Notice there's no color. Their color comes after the writing. So let's look at some more examples. There's a dog in the picture. The dog is in the house. The dog is tan with brown eyes and a black nose. There's 1 dog. The dog is small. It has 2 eyes, 1 nose, 1 tail. I have 4 dogs. I like dogs more than cats. Where do dogs live? So you see, she started to go off. Look at this child. He loves dinosaurs. So here's his story. I like dinosaurs a lot. There's a bird in my picture and a pterodactyl. They're in the jungle. There's rocks and trees. There's grass, dirt, leaves, and water too. 1 dinosaur has sharp teeth. Some are dead now. So be careful, they're not all dead now. Some are dead now. It's funny. This one is a struggler. So here's his paper. I see Dalmatians. They're near the presence. They're black and white. They're 2 Dalmatians. They are small. You don't understand this, but this child really struggled. Have you noticed how great the spelling is? The word dinosaurs, the word Dalmatians, the word presents. That is because on the back of these pictures are word banks. And so students are now almost learning to use dictionaries and learning to look at where words are and being able to say, that's the word I want, and learning how to spell it. And so they're on the back of these. That's why all the big words were spelled correctly. Pterodactyl and dinosaur and leaves. But the little words were the ones that oftentimes were not spelled correctly because those are our sight words that we're working with. One more suggestion. Don't write the words on the back of these pictures at home. I did. I spent the whole weekend taking the pictures and writing the words on the back. And then when I came to school, the children did not want to use the words that I wrote down. They had their own ideas. And so you have to do it with the students, because now I had to teach them all the words that I wrote. So much more powerful and useful when you, for example, hold up this picture and say, let's write 5 words on here that you would think that you want to use when you write about this picture. Well, the first word is penguins. You know how hard that is to spell. You can have now spelling mini lessons as you're writing the words. How do I start penguins? What do you hear? What do you hear in the middle? Pen. And now we talk about the odd spelling of penguins. Another thing that, a word that they wanted was really a phrase. They wanted ring around the rosy. So here's one of their writings. I like penguins a lot. They're 3 penguins. They're playing ring around the rosy. They are black and white. They are all big. They are in a field dustin'. So now here are some samples where they're just magazine pictures that were pulled or old cards. Kids can take them and they glue them because it's theirs. They finish the picture and then they write about it. This is 2 people in a sleigh. They are on a path. They are going to their house. They just passed by a church. They are going by horse. I am moving today, and I miss my friends. They will play tag with me, and they play hide and go seek, and I miss Mrs. K. So look at and. So now what we want to do, because this child is ready, let's say to him, I want you to change the word and. Try to reframe the sentence, and most of the time they realize, you know what, you don't need the word and so I can get rid of it. There's no erasing and there's no crossing out. What we say to the students is wave it through. I miss my friends, or add the word will. I will miss my friends. They played tag with me. Also, they played hide and go seek with me. I will also miss. So you see how you can now play with these? King Bear picks flowers. So this is all about King Bear. This is a picture of some bunnies. This is a picture of me with very long arms and very long legs. Funny. Toy catalogs. This is a great time to start collecting all those toy catalogs. The next 2 pictures that you'll see came from toy catalogs. I like princesses because they are cute. And I want to be a princess. And I want to match a castle. And we'll go to the mall. So you see, I guess when you're a princess, you can go to the mall. So here is a picture again, a toy from a magazine. I was pushed, my friend. It was fun. They told me to push them. I said, okay. They said, yeah. I pushed them. So I'm not going to read you anymore. But you see, this child didn't even look at the chart. She doesn't need the chart. She can write a story right away. So don't be concerned that the chart is going to kind of stop the kids who can go further. They just don't use the chart. So the chart is your structure, your scaffolding, your way to differentiate in terms of helping, and they don't have to use it, but boy, for those kids who need it, look at how much writing they did at the beginning of these samples. So here's another child. I like kittens because they are white. They have a little nose. They meow, and they have blue eyes. They are little, too. And I have a kitten at home, and she sleeps with me every night. She sleeps with my sister, too. We love her. So this child took some of the details from the chart in that she described her, but then she went off and told about the kitten and being at home and what they do. So we have about 2 more minutes before I turn it back to Michelle. I'm going to show you one more strategy. And it's with the magazine pictures. I'll explain an example of using this first with your emergent writers. They're only at the beginning sound stage, then we're at the picture level, and then we'll move on to students who are ready for almost some paragraphing. So they take a picture, and they take 4 Post-it notes, and they put those 4 Post-it notes around the picture. They find 4 details in the picture, and they have to draw and label those details. For example, in this picture, I see, let me back up again and get the pen. There's the pen. In this picture, I see a tree. In this picture, I see a road. In this picture, I see grass. In this picture, I see a fence. And I may get FS. So it's easier for those students who panic about the spelling, who can't read back what they've written, to just start with one word. And I really don't want to give them a workbook page or lined paper, because the workbook page, if it's just fill in, circle, or match, then copy the person next to them, or I'm really, if I'm honest with myself, I'm doing it for them or with them. Or they see the lined paper and all they start to do is string letters together. Now they're trying to say tree, road, and if they put let's say they put a Z over here, at least they're writing a letter. They know that letters make words. Also now, think about doing this with any subject area. So let's say you're working with fall. Tell me 4 things that happen in the fall. The leaves fall, you can pick apples, it's Halloween time, and it gets colder. Now, for some of kids who are more able, each one of those things becomes, or topics, becomes a main idea of a story or description about fall. In fall, the weather gets colder. So now talk about it. We don't go to the beach anymore. We start to get out our hats and coats. It gets windy. Next paragraph. We also start to do a lot of harvesting in the fall. We get pumpkins. We can pick apples and make pies. So do you see you can go from just labeling to paragraphing? All right, I'm going to start to close down now. The most important part of what we looked at today was to think about helping students get started so that they have the boxes to look at, so that they have 3-line framework to look at, so that they have a magazine picture to look at, or that they just work with Post-it notes. Think about writing fluency. You want to do something every week that's fun, and it makes a difference in somebody's life, like a letter to somebody, a thank you letter. Also, since this popped up, don't forget wordless books are fabulous for writing, because the wordless books, the word or the text is already done. All they have to do is write what they see. All right, there we go. So I thank you so much for spending some of your valuable time with me. Visit me on my website, patpavelka.com. The website on the front page always has all the SDE conferences and seminars that I'll be a part of, and there are links on them so that you can click and it'll take you right to the SDE site, and you can register. You can see all the different presenters that will be there, as long with topics that I may be doing. Also, you can link over to Crystal Springs Books from my website, and you'll see a lot of different books from myself and other really great presenters there. So again, I so thank you for making such a difference in the life of a child and spending so much of your time with me this afternoon. So Michelle, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Pat. We hope everyone enjoyed today's presentation. We're going to take just a minute or two to let you submit any last-minute questions for Pat via the window on the right-hand side of your screen. In the meantime, I'd like to mention a few things. As a special thank you for attending today's webinar, we'd like to offer you a 10% discount if you register for any seminar or conference by November 29th, 2014, and mention VIP code W102914. In fact, you may be particularly interested in joining Pat at one of her one-day reading mini-lessons seminars taking place across the country this November through May 2015. You may also like our one-day seminar on writing mini-lessons, or even joining us in Las Vegas or Orlando this summer for our national conferences. Please keep in mind that you can bring Pat on-site to your school or district for customized training or consulting, all to meet your unique needs. For more information on training or to register for any SDE event, call us at 877-388-2054. Of course, we'd like to also invite you to follow SDE via social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest under the username SDE4Educators, and that's the number 4. Finally, live attendees will receive a follow-up email within 48 hours that will include a link to a printable certificate of participation for this webinar, as well as a link to the archived recording. Again, thank you for your patience, and let's get to those questions that came in during the presentation. Okay, Pat, let's see. We have a question from Riley, and she's asking, how do you get 22 students started? It's great strategies for one, but if most are reluctant, what do you do?
Riley, that's a great question, especially when you're working with big class sizes and everybody needs you. When you work, let's take, for example, the 6 boxes. When you work with the 6 boxes, we model it at least 2 weeks with individual children before you ever give them the boxes on their own. My biggest mistake is I don't model enough, because part of me thinks, how hard is this? You take the 6 boxes, you give 6 ideas, and then you write, and boy, is it hard. So model for at least 2 weeks. And then what I find is when I give them the boxes, it's not just one big picture. They have 6 separate pictures. So as my whole class of 25 kids are working on each separate picture, I can start to get around and start to brainstorm with them and say, look, if you're going to write a story about a pumpkin, what do you think when you get to the word pumpkin it would start with? So I'm going to start to just talk with them, so as they start to write, they don't panic. And I'm going to go to 2 of my students, one of them being Sam, who's a struggler and knows no letters and sounds, and say, Sam, when you're ready to write, I would like you to just write some letters down, because he's not hearing the sounds. So I can really talk till I'm blue in the face and almost kind of spit all over him trying to say, for pumpkin. The most important part for him is that he strings letters together, because what we're trying to do now is say to them, don't ask me how to spell it. That's the hardest part. And once they see that stringing letters together is a celebration, then they're independent, and as they start to learn sounds, you'll see it start to grow. So it does sound overwhelming, but you'll see because of the 6 boxes, or because of the 3-line framework, what you could do is take that 3-line framework, no writing, pictures only. So take those 6 boxes and cut them in half. So picture 1 has the person in the setting, picture 2 has the problem, picture 3 has the solution, and then you're only going to get maybe 3 phrases or 3 strings of letters together. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, great information, Pat. We have another question from Jennifer. She's asking if you can use the boxes with preschoolers or early kindergartners.
The question is, I don't have to repeat the question. I'm thinking you're all in front of me. You can all hear. So what I would do with pre-K and preschoolers is cut off the bottom 2 boxes so you only have 4. Or, because if you have 4, then you're almost working with first, next, then last. Or cut off the 3 boxes and just work with beginning, middle, end. And I would actually start with stories. So you read them a story, and then you would talk about what's the beginning of the story, the middle of the story, and the end of the story. And they draw, and then they just string letters together. So they're learning beginning, middle, end, so that when they start writing, they have kind of the flow and the organization in their head, even though they're just stringing letters together.
That's great. Now, Michelle has a question again about the boxes.
Okay.
She's asking, for emergent writers, do you do the boxes with each student and then wait until they are all done for them to write or label, or do they each write around their picture as they complete it?
They all start at the same time. When I set the assignment, it's okay, everybody start, and then everybody's working at a different level. I'll have some students who take 2 days to get the picture done. I'll have other students who take 15 minutes to get the pictures done, and they're ready to write. And so what we're finding is that this activity takes 1 to 2 days. When it takes more than 1 period, it's very difficult for young children to go back to it because they forget what their picture was, what they drew, what their story was about. But when you're working with the 6 boxes, I find it's so much easier to go back to it because those boxes are only one specific detail and not this great big picture, so that they can kind of go back and catch themselves. The other thing you could do is put this at a center. So do a lot with the whole class, and then you could put it at a center where the kids could just do the pictures there, and then you could have a time when they're writing whole class, and sometimes when they're writing whole class, I try to have another adult in the room with me, so 2 of us are going around and not telling them how to spell it. Be careful. And if we're finding that they're not being able to say T or T when I say table, then we're going to shift to just write a letter down. If they say what one, I look at the wall and say pick one.
Okay, great.
Hopefully that helped.
And I think we have time for one more question. This question is from Kelly, and she's asking, how do you teach students about spacing between words?
The question is about spacing. We do a couple of things. If they are, first of all, if they're just stringing letters together, they typically may not be ready for the spacing. The other, if they are, then we have a little puppet that's our spaceman. You put your 2 fingers in his legs, that's the puppet part, and he walks around. I walk around with him just to kind of fool around and play with the kids and remind them about their spaces. Everybody then makes a spaceman out of not a tongue depressor, that's too fat, out of a popsicle stick. So they decorate it, we put googly eyes on it, and so now what they do is, as they're writing, they have Mr. Spaceman at their seat, and they put it down after they write each word so that they actually have a movement piece to it.
Okay, great.
And also, let me give you one more strategy with the spelling. Most of us can find a baby. We know somebody that's got a little infant. What I've done is I brought that infant, obviously with his mama, into the classroom. We all sit in a big circle, and I have the infant, the baby, on my lap. And I pick the baby up, and I say to my students, I want this baby to walk now. And should I let the baby go? Because I want her to walk right now. And the kids all say, no. And I say, why? She's going to fall. But I want her to do it right now. She's ready to walk. And the kids will say, no, she's not. And I'll say, oh, she's not ready to walk. It's the same thing with you in writing. You may not be ready to spell the whole word, but you are ready to put some letters down. And then we talk about how a baby learns to walk. A baby will start to crawl. Well, maybe now you're starting to hear the sounds and you're putting the beginning sound. Then the baby will stand up and hold on to something. Well, maybe now you are putting the ending sounds. And that baby starts to take a step holding your fingers. You're now putting the spacing in there. So just as a baby cannot get up and walk, you cannot get up and spell. Because if I think about the writing piece, it's the spelling that holds them back. They typically have ideas, but they are so afraid of the spelling that they don't get into that pre-communicative stage of writing, which is stringing letters together. And also, I'm a little scared sometimes as a teacher to let them just string letters together because I want them to know that's not how you spell the word. But if you're saying for pumpkin, pumpkin, and they're saying Z, they are at the pre-communicative stage where they are only stringing letters. It's going to be too frustrating, and they're never going to start to just put letters down. When they say to you, is it spelled correctly? I will say, first of all, you've used letters, which is great. Letters make up words. You don't have all the letters from that word, but we'll worry about that later because right now you are just crawling. And I know it's working because my kids will say to me, Miss P, I'm just crawling today. Or Miss P, I think I stood up. Look at my spaces. And so that analogy of I want the baby to walk, I now use all the time after that baby has come in and said, remember, you're crawling. You're not going to be a perfect writer. Get those letters down. Because that, again, is one of the biggest issues with why they're not independent and they all want us. So thank you for spending an extra moment. Let me give you that last little bit of idea.
That's great, Pat. And we are out of time. If we did not get to your question, we will be posting all questions and answers with the webinar archive. Links to this will be posted on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. My thanks to Pat for joining us today, and I hope you enjoyed today's presentation and that you have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.